Salvete omnes. Today we are going to talk about the uses of the accusative. Now, this is going to be part one of two videos on the usages of the accusative case. So this is because, if your Latin journey, if you're learning it at school, it might be split into 2 years. If you're doing it at university, it might be split into first semester and second semester. And so there are some more basic uses of the accusative and some level 1 usages, which you'll probably be introduced to first. And then there's sort of the next level, what you might learn in your last year of Latin or the second semester of learning Latin. So you might not, depending on where you are in your Latin journey, need to know all of this right now, but it's always good to have a reference point. And this video will just be going over the most basic uses of the accusative. So the accusative is the direct object, the appositional accusative, the accusative is the internal object, or the cognate accusative, and then the accusative with a preposition. So the first thing is obviously accusative as the direct object, which is what the accusative is most often going to be doing. So in the sentence, Quintus loved Claudia, Claudia is the object. She is receiving the action of the verb, which in this case is love. So Quintus would be the subject, and Claudia is the direct object of the action that Quintus is performing. So here, the accusative is identifying the object, that is, the person or thing receiving the action of the verb in the sentence. So that is pretty straightforward, and that's probably, when you first meet the accusative, that's the most basic definition of the accusative that you'll probably get the first time you encounter it. But there are a few other reasons that you might use the accusative. And one of those is the appositional accusative. So this is when you're attaching a phrase, right? So there's a difference between a clause and a phrase. A clause is something that includes a verb. A phrase is something that's just a group of nouns and adjectives. So if it's just a phrase, in Latin, you can just put a phrase next to a word with the assumption that it is describing that word. So in the sentence, Quintus hugged Claudia, daughter of Lucretia is an appositional phrase that is describing Claudia. Now, the appositional phrase is going to go into whatever case and whatever number the verb that it's coming off of is, right? So this should actually be Claudia, Claudiam. Woo, going out of control. Okay. So let's cross this out. This should be Claudiam. So because in this sentence, right, Quintus hugged Claudia, because Claudia is in the accusative case because she is the direct object of the verb, then the appositional phrase, filiam Lucretia, is going to go into the accusative, right? So an appositional accusative gives us extra information about the object in the sentence. That's all you need to know. Oops. Okay. Now we have got something a little bit different, which is a cognate accusative. So an example of this would be meliorum vivam vivere. So these are pretty obvious generally, because the whole point, which is what cognate means, is that it means that the noun is derived from the same root that the verb is derived of, right? So to live a life. So let's clear that and move forward. Too far. Okay, so in Latin, there are some verbs that are intransitive, which means that they don't take a separate object, like the verb to rain, right? We say, it's raining. We don't say, it's raining water, or it's raining rain. These verbs, although they don't take a normal object, can take a cognate accusative. So an accusative that's taken from the same root as the verb itself. An accusative that is formed from the verb itself. Should have just kept reading. For extra emphasis. So for here we've got meliorum vivam vivere, so to live a better life. Here, servitutem servire, to serve in slavery. But like this is like to be a slave in slavery. And then we've got somnum malum dormire, so to sleep a bad sleep. So in English, this sounds horrendous. So in English, usually what we would do if you wanted to say that you had a bad sleep is you would say, I slept badly, and we would use an adverb to describe the verb. But what Latin does is that it uses a cognate accusative plus an adjective. So rather than saying, I slept badly, you would say, I slept a bad sleep. Okay, now we've got the fourth usage, which is the accusative with a preposition. So she ran to the ship before the soldiers who were chasing her. Okay, so here I've marked out the prepositional statements in brackets and I've underlined the main verbs. So here is the first preposition. So the preposition ad nauem, she is running to the ships. And then ante miteles, before the soldiers, or in front of the soldiers. So this is probably the second most common use of the accusative, is in addition to a preposition, because a preposition is going to need to take either the accusative, the dative, the genitive, or the ablative in order to sort of function completely. So it's actually good because in this sentence we have got em, right? So if we were going to say why is em, so that's her, we've got the soldiers who were following her or chasing her. So em is in the accusative because it's a direct object, right? It's the action of following is happening to the woman, whereas here ship is in the accusative, not because it's the direct object of kukurit, so running, but because it is being what we call governed by a preposition, and it's the same with the soldiers. So if you're in a test or if you're in a class and your teacher asks you why is milites in the accusative case, you would say because it's being governed by the preposition ante. So what I have put together for you is a list of all the prepositions that take the accusative. You can find this list probably somewhere else, but this is a pretty comprehensive list. So we've got ad, adversus, apud, circum, circa, quis, quitra, contra, erga, extra, infra, inter, intra, juxta, ob, per, post, praeter, prope, propter, super, and supra, trans, and ultra. Now, basically, if you want to use any of these prepositions, you're going to have to use the accusative after it. And just as some little bonus content, we have got prepositions that can take the accusative, right? So These are the extra fun prepositions because their meaning changes depending on what case follows them, right? So let's have a look at, so in is a classic case. So in plus the ablative means that you're in or on something, right? It's in the drawer, or it's on top of the sofa, on top of the desk. Whereas in plus the accusative means that you're going into. You're going into the house, into the room, etc., etc., or you're going towards a city, etc., etc. So the meaning can actually change depending on what case follows the preposition, which is a good thing to keep in mind because that's when they like to trick you. That's when they like to trick you. Okay, ite perfecimus sic bene veletur. So that's part 1 of uses of the accusative. You can come back for part 2, which are the slightly more complicated uses of the accusative. Right, vale.